Okiiniksukueks. Nistuakok misaminiskim. Kitakta peitsinikuhpuau naaksa Naato'siyinnipi. Anu Piikaniwa. Akutsi akkumanistastiu upatapiukseni. Utsi anu nohkitskimmukiu anu kitawahsimennon. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. I am known as Misaminiskim. My Blackfoot name means ancient or long time buffalo stone. I am here. I am going to share a story and the life of my 5 times great-grandfather by the name of Brings Down the Sun. Brings Down the Sun in Blackfoot was Naato'siyinnipi. He was a part of my life growing up. My grandmother was always alluding and always talking about her grandfather, Naato'siyinnipi. As a child growing up, I thought, oh, someday I'm going to see him, what he looks like, and that. So I would ask her, and she would just tell me, Kika, wait, and that. Grandmother passed on, and it wasn't till probably the early 90s or late 80s we met this gentleman at Browning, Montana, Indian days. We were over there, and he came to my parents, and he told them, "Where are you from?" And John Yellowhorn told him, "I'm from Piikani, Piikani." Oh, the man told him, "Oh, okay." Then he went and he gave him a copy of this book. He said, "In this book, there's stories about you. There's stories about your, your people, the North Pagans, Piikani, and that." So, of course, as children, we all started to look at it and that. Lo and behold, the first photo in this picture was Naato'siyinnipi. So I got to see what he looked like and that. And so we were able to go and get a copy of this picture of him. This picture is in the Southwest Museum in Los Angeles, California. When Walter McClintock was amongst us, and then after, he all his collections of photos, articles, and that, he all forwarded to Southwest Museum and that. And he had a friend, her name was Charlotte Pickerton, and Charlotte, he was the painter. So McClintock told Charlotte, "This is the colors, this is what he looks like, this is what so that way we were able to get a colored version of Naato'siyinnipi and his outfit and that. Hey, I've written some things that I was going to talk about. Okay. Naato'siyinnipi brings down down the sun was one of our Piikani ancestors. Naato'siyinnipi was born in late spring, early summer, when the grass turned green. At this time, white man was first seen in this country. The records state that as being early 1880s. He was born into the Grease Melter clan, and the clan lived around Heart Butte, Montana. His eldest daughter, Ancestral, long hair, married Maestakatsis, Crow Rounds. Maestakatsis was from Piikani here. He moved his family up to this area. Ancestral was a favorite daughter of Naato'siyinnipi. Therefore, he followed her and her husband over to this side of the country. The clan later was known as Lone Fighters, Naato'siyinnipi. And why they got that name was, when people would walk by, they would hear them quarreling among themselves. Sometimes they were, they would be out loud disputes or arguments and that. And so, therefore, the people called them Naato'siyinnipi. In 1910, brings down the son, passed away. Grandmother said that he had a heart condition, and this was what took his life. Okay, so I'm going to just give a briefing on burial practices of our people. Death was extreme fear. They were reluctant to touch a dead body. If a person was near death, they would ask to make a will, if possibly dressed before death. They died before this preparation. Someone will be called to help. Occasionally, the wife or other woman performed the duty of dressing up the body. None of the men would dare approach the corpse. As soon as a person dies, preparation took place. Immediate burial was in a few hours of death. Only leaders and chiefs were kept for a day or two. All of the deceased belongings are placed either in flat or cylinder-style parfleches. The deceased is dressed in their finest clothing, which would reflect their status in life. A fully dressed body is wrapped in a hide, robe, or blanket, sometimes lodge coverings. The covering were not sewn or pinned down in order for the spirit not to be confined. Scaffolds were built in the branches where the dressed body is placed. Lodge burials is more frequent than the tree burials. In nomadic days, the people merely moved out and scaled the lodge with the body inside. This practice was for chiefs only. Elsie Croshoe tells the story of Running Wolf's death. Running Wolf, he had lots of names. Some of his names were Namawatiskasi. Just likes to, I guess, if I could use the term, fool around and that. Wilford Yellowwings has that name. His other name was Itsimapsi, difficult person. And the late Mervyn Croshoe had that name. I don't know if it was passed on to his sons. The other name that he had was Naato'siyinnipi, and that meant a big single braid in the back. Charles Strikes with a Gun has that name now. My mother gave it to him to carry on. Um, he was Apisumaka. For the longest, he was running wolf. And a lot of the documents, that I had come across in my research, he was referred to as Apisumaka, running wolf. Where he got the name Naato'siyinnipi was he was in he was really my grandmother said that he would always go off and do vision quests and that. He even went, south east of here to Anatsitumu, Picture Butte. In that were, these were the different places that Naato'siyinnipi traveled within his country to, go on vision quest sites. And one of the vision quest sites, he was given the power, an incredible power, and that was to be able to have control of weather. One of the incidents that happened probably not too far from this area was that there was a Sundance that was going on. His daughter on Tsimeshkini, long hair, that was her Sundance that was happening across probably by Claire's home in that area. This story was related to us by Wilfred Yellowwings from his grandfather, the late Tom Little Plume. Anyway, he was on that. He was herding. They had a big roundup, and they had gathered all the cattle that they were going to brand and that. Lo and behold, they were just in process of moving the herd. Now, Atsimeskini was already going to come out of her 4-day sweat that she had, for the Sundance. They were going to put the center pole up, and to the west was a storm that had built up. It was just it was going to be a really terrible rainstorm with lightning and all that had formed in the west and it started to come closer to them and that. So they were asking Naato'siyinnipi to go and help them with the power that he got to control weather. So he went and he had a whistle and he had an eagle fan. And Naato'siyinnipi was also what we call a weather dancer in the Sundance. He would, that was also another role that he was known for. Anyway, so he started dancing out and singing, and he had his whistle, eagle whistle, and his feather that he, a fan, eagle fan, and then the storm was almost on top of them, and he just lifted up, I guess, his fan and pulled the clouds apart. The clouds just came apart. The people with the cattle roundup were saved. His daughter was able to proceed on to his Sundance. So with that, the people will told him, "Oh, you've been given the name Naato'siyinnipi. Show us how you have that. What kind of power, that you have." Takidan status. So again, it was an encampment, Kukats, and it was going to have a gun and that. So early in the morning, he told his people the night before, early in the morning, I want you to all get up early and look to the east where Naato'si comes up and that. So all the people, that were in the encampment and that, it so happened that one of the stock agents by the name of Lancaster, he happened to be just probably bringing um, something to the camp for the people to use, and he witnessed that too. And anyway, so the sun was just coming up, and again, he was dancing and singing and that, and then he was able to get the sun to move up and down and that. And so the people told him, "Ah, now you are Naato'siyinnipi," brings the sun down. So, these are stories, like I said, my grandmother was so fond of her grandfather, Naato'siyinnipi. She was always, uh, she had her stories about all that she had, you know, growing up and being around Naato'siyinnipi. Okay, so I'm going to go back to tell the story of Naato'siyinnipi or Api Sumahkan. Um, so Running Wolf died. His wife prepared him in this fashion where, he was dressed and everything. And the burial lodge, as if he were laying on one of the lodge beds, as if he were sleeping. She would sit by the body and smoke with it. She claimed you can actually see smoke rising when she'd hold a pipe towards the body. She was able to have conversation with her dead husband, Naato'siyinnipi. As time wore on, he was not as audible. Finally, only whisper tones heard in complete silence. She claimed that he had gone on to the spirit world, the great sand hills. And so when they when he had died, that's what they built was a structure. You could still see the the planks of wood that they had used and that. Grandmother said that it's it sat there for a very long time and that. And but she said, over time, you know, when they would come here, they would begin to see, some of his belongings, because he brought all his belongings with him, and they would start seeing them begin to disappear and that. And they didn't really blame anybody. They just kind of accepted it that and so and it stood there for the longest, and I've been trying to find out how long. So 1910, to today, like now we only begin to see the leftover planks that are there. Um, there was a few of these burial lodges that were built. I know in Piikani at where the cemetery is, in where the cemeteries are in Piikani. Up on that hill, there was another one there. I remember seeing that lodge there, and and they said that belonged to a man by the name of Many Chiefs, and that he was the one that had that. He owned, or he had farmed and ranched down there by where Potts live today, and that's where he was placed because they wanted him to overlook his land. um, I haven't witnessed any other you know, sites of, the uh, structured for their burial. But down in the river bottom, and that um, there was actually scaffolds of tree burials that you could see up on top. Uh, the late Hugh Crow Eagle shared a story with me. He said, he had gone off hunting, and that, he was they getting short of meat, so he thought, well, I'm going to go hunt. And he had probably made his way down where they had lived, and that, and so he come close to these um, um, tree burials that were up on top, and he said he felt really uneasy, and he felt, you know, um, just drained, and he could not, figure out, because at that time he was chasing a deer, and he was determined that he was going to shoot that deer, and he made his way in that. So he said, I sat down. He said, I was just exhausted and just kind of, seeing if, I know when I get up, I know which way to follow that deer and that. So he said, I sat there, and then he said, I happened to look up, and there was the tree burials and that. He said, so I just quit hunting the deer, packed up, and went home. He said that was a really eerie feeling, just just completely drained, and you had to sit down and that, and here he was right under, you know, the tree burials that he had. Um, so that talks about uh, Naato'siyinnipi's, his death. But I just wanted to go and quickly share some of this, the books here. The first one is called The Old Indian Trail, and it talks about the legends and religion of the Blackfoot Indians, and that it starts out of Glacier Park, where Walter McClintock worked with the forestry, and that's where he met, started his journey to be friends with the um, Blackfoot Amskapi Piikani. Anyway, so the whole story goes, and then the back part of it is when he came up north, he was in this area. There's actual photos that you could see of him being here, coming in to the encampment of the Naato'siyinnipi. In the beginning, brings down the sun, didn't want to talk to him. He wanted to absolutely have nothing to do with the white race, because they were cutting back his rations. They were cutting back, what he needed, because he was preparing for his um, um, Ogan that was going to take place, and that. So, and he could not understand why, he was being restricted all this and that. So he was really upset. He was not very happy with the white man. And then he met Walter McClintock. There's a good photo in here that I have when he first um, met with Walter McClintock. One of the things that he said was that Naato'siyinnipi seen him, and here's that photo. You guys can take a picture. See, this was how Walter McClintock looked like, and this was Naato'siyinnipi. When he seen Walter McClintock take that piece of paper, and he would write and keep writing and writing. So Naato'siyinnipi said, "Ah, I will, I will tell you the story of my people. I will tell you that. But as long as you keep it for the future generation."
Wow.
And today, look at us.
Yeah.
We're the future generation. We have other generations where it's going to keep going, and that where it's going to go. Okay, so anyway, this is what they call the British version.
Okay.
This was, it was probably, I don't know who it was published by, but it was the what they call the British, you know, um, version, and that. And then, not too long ago, um, this was another, the Old North Trail in reproduction, and this was done by this Sidney J. Larson.
Oh, not the. Oh, okay.
Yeah, not, and that was, probably just copied it and made sure that. So this is available. That's not available anymore. That's out of print.
Is that right?
The only thing that I noticed that the difference between these books
Yeah.
was Brings Down, or not Brings Down, McClintock had included a map.
Yeah.
A map on this one, and there's none on that one.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's pretty well the same, the same stories and that. I know this is available.
Do you know how old he was when he passed away?
Well, we used to, he's got to be over 100 because he died in they 1830 and 1910.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was, and he Naato'siyinnipi or Apiso Makan was at the treaty too in 1877 when they were all. So I worked on some papers, and there were just a lot of papers with just notes on them. There were journals.
Yeah.
These were journals that Clyde Schaefer did a few books, but not very much. Anyway, so these were copies that he would put on there, and it would say many children's band. It says here, North Pagan history. Iron Shirt, the father of Brings Down the Sun, had a number of wives and many children. Therefore acquired this nickname, Many Children. Iron Shirt is the famous photo that was, when he met Meekskimmi Sukasumi. Why his name was Meekskimmi Sukasumi was that he had a vest, and it all had medals and that. And they said the medals on that was a previous, it was taken or gifted to him by the Spanish, and it was a, what do you call those conquistadoras? They had a medal, and they had cut that, and he made a vest.
That's neat.
Yes, because his father went down. He often talks about this Old North Trail.
Yeah.
That's why that book was called. It's just the mountains, the foothills, and there's a trail that goes all the way north, to Alaska and that. And that old North Trail was how they made their way to, they called the land of the dark-skinned people, and that was the Mexicans. They met them, and they end up, they were there for almost over 2 years before they came back home.
Wow.
and that's where one of the uh, I guess gifts that he got was this you know Spanish conquistador of that, and that so there he got the name Mixkimisukasimi. Anyway, so there was a lot of things that I had come across. It says here in 1875, prominent chief of the North Piikani died. And it has 1909, but there's a question mark. He attended the council in 1868 as Running Wolf, and 1875 as Brings Down the Sun. He was a great ritualist in sun dances. Father was Iron Shirt, and many children. So these were just things that would talk about just little journals that I had found and photocopied. The Lone Fighters Band was a branch of the Grease Melters. Band father and chief were Iron Shirt. He was originally a blood Indian who had come into pagan territory. His group increased through added mixture of mixed bloods and others. Later returned to Canada, and descendants live there now. And so that's what it talks about. Iron Shirt, and, brings down the sun. There is a bio that I had copied because it talks about the father of like his grandfather. His grandfather was yuck. His grandfather, and then I have a copy of this one which I would share with you girls. And it brings down the sun's, his genealogy. His grandparents were Inuksistak, Little Mountain, and his grandmother was Naato'siyinnipi, Bobcat. So it has children of his grandparents, their wives, and then it has here where he's got brother and sisters and that, and then him and his wives and his sons and his daughters and that. So there's a whole genealogy that excuse me. It's important. I always thought it was very important for me to know all that, because of the late Alan Pard was always sharing with me and telling me that it's good to know, where you come from, and that, it helps with your identity, but it also strengthens you as, if you know where, your relatives, where you come from, and that. So that's a good message for for the young people. Yeah. To, there's research and that. So, some of the stuff I have added here was just a that he shared with McClintock, and that was, he even had the calendars of the moon, and that, the seasons and that. And what come across interesting things. He said his father taught me to read the signs. When the Lariat Argatis rain roper appears in the sky, I know Thunder Chief is roping the rain. The storm will slow up. When the fires in the north aurora flash in the winter sky, it's a sign that a violent windstorm will arise. when the sun paints both his cheeks, that is, when two sun dogs, Ikski, appears on both sides of the sun, it's a warning that a fierce storm, violent cold, and severe winds are coming. When the sun paints his face on the forehead and the chin and both cheeks, it's a warning that a chief will die soon. So these,
That's rare.
yeah, so some of these are, really, like my family would say, "Oh, I seen a sun dog," and okay, well, what did it,
Yeah.
and that because you look for that, like, and that. So
Yeah.
yeah, and there's some, encounter we seen, and another one that they would that was taught to us was the when the moon would eclipse
Yeah.
at night. There's a great leader
Oh, really?
that's going to die.
Okay.
So these are, I guess some of the things that have been taught to them,
Yeah.
and